right, everybody. This is, I believe, our 12th edition of the Blueprint Academy. Brian, great to see you. And
Same.
we have a very special guest today, Bobby Medina, who is Blueprints with Bob, an amazing account on Instagram, who is like us, trying to just help other people in AEC get better at reading drawings, better at QCing drawings. Bobby, it is wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you both for having me here. It's a pleasure. It's been a kind of a crazy journey getting Blueprints with Bob started, and it's been amazing to see what's come of it these last 4+ months. It's
Wow.
Still pretty fresh, so it's growing quickly. I'm very thankful to be doing things like this. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I think that you're a superintendent. How did you get into construction? Was it what influenced you to get into this extraordinary industry? And we'd love to know more about your origin story. And we're both Los Angelinos, so I like to keep that pretty tight too.
Absolutely. So the reason I joined construction is I've always been a part of it, really. Since I was a kid, my father, all my uncles, everyone growing up did construction. So it was just natural for me. I was a little kid going to job sites, mixing concrete on the job sites, pushing around a little wheelbarrow, things like that. And I was always very hands-on. I loved it. I loved being on the job site, seeing kind of the flow of everything. And it was so exciting, just a little kid seeing equipment and just everything going on. It was always it was incredible to me. So as a kid, like I said, I was always a part of it. And then through high school, through college, the summers, winter breaks, I always worked construction just to make a little bit of extra money. And my dad was like, "Hey, you're not doing anything at home? Get your butt over here." So it's and my dad was very supportive on the job sites. He made it a point to be the one yelling at me. So I was working the hardest, things like that. But it was summer breaks, winter breaks, everything like that. And all the way through college, even through college, I did the same. And I went to college with the intention of becoming an engineer. I was always pretty decent at math. So I was like, hey, you know what? Natural thing for me is become an engineer, right? You use math to be an engineer. Let's go ahead and do that. So I went to San Francisco State to obtain my civil engineering degree, which I did get. And then after college, of course, I had the intentions of becoming a civil engineer. I had a degree. I had the intentions of becoming a civil engineer. I actually couldn't find a job for a little while after college. It was tough to find a job because I didn't do any internships or anything like that. Of course, I made that mistake, which a lot of other people make that mistake as well. Which, if you're watching this, try and get an internship while you're in college. It will make a difference. Yeah. So got my civil engineering degree. Couldn't find a job after college for a few months, so I went back to working construction, which is what I knew, right? I went back to, and when I worked construction, it was primarily in the concrete trades. So a lot of flat work, brick, block, things like that. A lot of masonry work. So did a lot of that, setting forms, things like that with my props. So did that, and then on a job site, I was wearing I had a super cheap Stanford shirt. I don't even know why I had it, but one of the owners of the property, he walked by, he's like, "Hey, you went to Stanford?" I was like he was saying a joke. I was like, "No, but I did just graduate with a civil engineering degree." He's like, "Oh, really? Look, are you looking for a job or anything like that?" I was like, "Yes." And he ended up, just by that small conversation, connecting me with a civil engineer that he knew down in Santa Ana. And I was living in the Valley at the time. So if you're familiar with Los Angeles, it's quite a commute. But I said I couldn't find a job for these last 3-4 months. Let's just give it a shot, right? So I was commuting an hour there, an hour plus there in the mornings, and then almost 2 hours back home for $14 an hour, an internship. So I was barely making enough to pay for gas to get to and from. And it was a civil engineering company. But the civil engineer at that company really didn't have a whole lot of work for me. So I ended up actually being put in the survey department, which now looking back was incredible hands-on experience for me to be working in the in the survey department. So I was kind of boots on the ground. I was going out onto various job sites every day, putting stakes in the ground, hammering them in there, and learning how to read elevations, how to set elevations, things like that. So that was an incredible experience for me. And it was, kind of natural because I'd worked in concrete. So now I was seeing oh, these are the stakes that I see on the job sites. Yeah. And this is the reason why they're here. Yeah, exactly. So it was amazing. So I ended up getting hired on full time after that internship to really work within the survey department. So I did that for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. which was amazing. And and after that, I had an architect that I actually used to work for doing labor work at his house, you know, brick masonry, things like that, like I had mentioned previously. He got word that I had just graduated college not too long ago, and he reached out and he was like, hey, I have this enterprise rent-a-car coming up. Are you interested in helping me run this project? And I was like, sure, why not? You know, survey wasn't paying a whole lot. It was a great experience, but it wasn't paying a whole lot. And I was young. I said, you know, why not? I was 22, 23. Yeah. So I said, let me give that a shot. And so that was my introduction into construction management. I was hired onto that project as essentially an assistant PM, but I was really the one running the whole project. And being put into a situation like that was kind of crazy because the architect, he wasn't on site. I was the only one on site. There was no it was a different from what we typically see within construction management, where you have a superintendent, a PM, a PE, like that, you know.
Sure.
And it wasn't a large project, but nonetheless, I was kind of thrown into that, and I barely knew how to read plans at that point, because that's not something you really learn in college, unfortunately.
Isn't that crazy though? That like I went to school for construction management.
Mm-hmm.
You went to for civil and structural engineering. Brian for construction management, and I was lucky that I have a similar but reverse story. It was my mom that used to kick my ass on the construction side, and but for her and the fact that I went to like trade school, because I started as a carpenter.
Okay.
We learned, this is like 2004 or 5. We learned how to draft with a pencil and paper. Like, can you believe that? Like teaching somebody how to do that now, they would think you were nuts. But that was the time when I really learned it. But I did my degree. I don't remember seeing one plan set like in 3 years.
It's insane.
Typical. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, not at all. I agree with you guys. And it's funny you mentioned the civil engineering side. I took on a little internship with a civil engineering company, and I couldn't read the plan. I didn't understand it at all. And it was totally Greek, right? We could talk about civil engineering drawings as a whole, but it wasn't until, just speak on your guys' field experience, because I think it's critical. I got to spend 3 days in the field staking. And it was kind of the coolest thing I ever saw, right? Because you're marking the elevations. Okay, that's what a grade means. That's how they see it. It was the best time of my life when I worked for that company.
Yeah, I agree. And it's unfortunate. Yeah, you don't learn blueprints, how to read construction drawings, anything like that. So yeah, I was just kind of thrown into the mix. I was like, I was struggling, and then from there I made it through that fire. And since the owner there, that's what you have to do, right? If you want to succeed, you gotta struggle, you gotta go through it, and you come out on the other end a much better person. You learn a whole lot, and it's kind of like everything else in life, right? And after that, the architect didn't have work for me because he was an architect. So I got introduced to the employer I was at these last 6.5 years, and worked on some amazing projects like SoFi Stadium. Another one, I was just thrown into the fire, coming off of a project where I didn't really know anything. Now thrown onto a project like SoFi Stadium, where we had some scope of work outside of the stadium. It was insane. It was the fire times 10 for me there. But again, I watched YouTube videos. I took the plans home with me every night, and I made it a point to learn these things and grow and everything like that. But with that being said, that's really one of the biggest reasons why I started Blueprints with Bob, because I went through that struggle. It shouldn't have been that hard. I should have had someone to teach me, or I should have had resources available to me to make things easier. And that's the whole reason why I started Blueprints with Bob, to give people, hey, here's a page where I can learn how to read structural drawings, how to read civil drawings, how to draw this, do that. Just a quick little videos, things like that, to help other people. I did create a course on how to read blueprints if people wanted to go ahead and do that. But really, on Instagram and TikTok, it's really just 30 seconds to a minute long videos, just to give people some helpful tips that a lot of people do need. And that's what really sparked the start of the page.
So this is, you mentioned this before, we were kind of chatting. This is Blueprints with Bob. This whole entire thing that you started was like 4 months ago. So like, did you just was it somebody was like, hey, you should just put a video up? Or were you just like, oh, I should just share this? Like, what was that moment that got you going? Like, why?
So looking back, it's kind of been in the works for a long time, I would say, because I've for it's almost 10 years probably. I've always been a tutor. I've always tutored math and science. I love to give back to other people. So whether like middle school, high school kids, things like that, I've always tutored, and I've also coached wrestling, things like that. So I've always kind of been really big into mentorship and helping give back. So kind of with that experience, I was now looking what's something else I can do maybe within my field, within my professional life. And that's what sparked me saying, hey, let me go ahead and create a course on how to read blueprints, because being a superintendent, I see there's a huge gap in terms of knowing how to read construction drawings. Like plumbers only know how to read plumbing drawings. Electricians only know how to read electrical drawings. And I was really trying to bridge that gap. If you want to be successful, you need to know how to read and understand all disciplines.
Agreed,
so I created a course, and then I was like, I don't really have a way to market this course at all. Let me just start posting on Instagram, TikTok, maybe gain a little bit of credibility and gain a following, and just help other people through the process. And it just kind of took off like wildfire.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. I think it's such a missing thing. And when we were starting this, I did a lot of research. I was like, well, first on the technology and stuff that we built, but specifically on like who's teaching courses. I couldn't find anything. And I did find a book written by Bill Nigro, who wrote a book called Ready Check. And he's like an ex-Navy guy, designed all the plan checking requirements for the Navy in the 80s, I want to say, and wrote a book and self-published it in like 2012 or 13. I can't remember. It's like 5 editions deep. And that was the only thing that at the time that I could find that was like a guide or a book or a thing. And it's like 280 pages. So it's like a legit manual, but like, I don't know about you, but that's like kind of boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good though. It was super helpful. And it's actually funny because Brian kind of ended up working and does still work with Ready Check a lot, which is an amazing connection. And those guys are incredible. They've really set the standard. But I think that we're such visual. I'm such a visual person. Yeah. And when I've watched your videos, and I don't have Instagram, so I use my wife's phone. But like, it's so good to just say like, here's this trick, or like, here's this thing that I'm doing right now, and how it can help you. And I wonder, have you heard from any of your followers, or have you got feedback, or how's that process been in terms of your content creation?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback, and honestly, 99 of it has been very positive, which I'm very thankful for, because you see a lot of other creators, a lot of the responses are not the best, but it's been so amazing to hear what people have to say, and just how thankful they are for what I've been posting, and saying how helpful it's been for them. And especially a lot of my Bluebeam tips, they're like, oh my gosh, I go back to my coworkers and I show them this, and they think I'm like a super incredible smart person just because of this small little tip, So it's just kind of, it's helping people within their own professional lives, and it's just really amazing to hear the feedback and again, it's been very positive, just in terms of how helpful it's been for a lot of these people. It's just a small little tip, like how to use a highlighter tool a little bit better, or how to do this, like just something very basic. It can be so helpful to people,
That's funny. I'd be curious, Bobby, who when you first started this, who was your intended audience, and have you seen that grow or change to a different type of audience?
It has grown. So my intended audience when I first started this was primarily people who are early in their professional journey, and possibly students. That's who I was really targeting, just because they don't have that foundational knowledge that they need. Yeah. So I was really trying to target that, and it's grown to probably like the mid and also higher level people within their professional journeys. It's really starting to blossom.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's amazing.
You and BK are actually like Bluebeam like experts, I think, based off how Brian showed me how he does stuff. He'll whip stuff up and all of a sudden I got like multiple plans going on and he's zooming in on two different areas at the same time. And yeah.
The funny thing about it though is when I first started this, it was specifically on how to read blueprints. I had no intention of showing people how to use Bluebeam at all. I didn't even think of that as an idea. Like that was nowhere. And then I think I just was showing a video, like, because I use Bluebeam to look at prints, right? So I was just showing that, and then someone made a comment. I don't even know what it was. And I was like, let me just make a video on how to use Bluebeam a little bit, right? And then it just took off. Like I couldn't even believe it. So I started posting a little bit more on Bluebeam, and I was no Bluebeam expert. I'm a superintendent. The reason I use Bluebeam is just to look at updated drawings or just to make a simple markup. You know, I don't do estimates. I don't do any of that on Bluebeam, but I've learned those skills within these last few months. And then now everyone thinks I'm an expert. I'm not. I'm just learning these skills as I go and sharing that with people.
That's funny because, you know, when Chris and I worked together, this is 15, almost 20 years ago, you know, Bluebeam was like, that was kind of the infancy of Bluebeam. And the cool thing was taking an iPad out to the field, you know, and you could barely scroll through one drawing every minute, you know, that's how but it's come a long ways. And now I depend on Bluebeam. I've got two monster screens I work with every day. And without Bluebeam, I'm sunk, you know, it's like, it's just, you know, we're dependent on it now big time, unfortunately, but
100%.
Good.
Yeah, it's definitely a staple as part of it, of the construction technology infrastructure. As I'm thinking about this, I would love your insight on where you think technology for drawing should go, or what would be really useful things for you or others. You know, given we've already have we have the infrastructure being, you know, PDF viewing and Bluebeam, etc. I'd love your insight on where you think this stuff should go.
Yeah, well, where I think it is going is definitely incorporating a lot of these AI tools, right? We see Bluebeam they have their beta out with Claude integration, things like that, and it's going to be released as part of Bluebeam Max next year. So that's going to be super exciting, right? It's essentially going to be, you know, Claude integrated with Bluebeam to let's say you're doing various markups on Bluebeam, you can use Claude to edit the markups or make additional markups. Search, it kind of enhances the search tools that are already part of Bluebeam, things like that. So that's definitely going to be helpful when we're doing takeoffs or just trying to identify various elements on Bluebeam. So that's going to be helpful. But there's also a lot of other technologies coming out, like Togo AI, right? If you guys have seen Togo AI, it's incredible. It's incredibly useful for your takeoffs, things like that. It'll just run through a full set of prints and do your area takeoffs, do all your counts, do all of that almost instantly. So it's incredible. I think it's just, we have to be careful with a lot of these AI tools and understand that we have to double check them. They're not perfect. We can't entirely rely on them. I think that's something that people need to be a little bit more conscious of. They hear, oh, this AI tool is out. Oh, my job is done. Like, I don't have to I just click this button and my job is done. No, that's not the case, right? We still have to go back through and double check. So I really want to reiterate that because I feel like people forget that.
Yeah.
But it is exciting. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But it echoes your purpose with creating the how to read drawings, because no matter what tools are out there, all contracts come back tied to this set of drawings, and understanding them is critical. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. But I'd be curious on your thoughts. You talked about a few of the AIs and what they're thinking about, you know, what they're working on. But what about overall quality of drawings that you're seeing? You know, how is it in your view? And you know, I'm kind of directing this question to Marked Up, but you know, what kind of value do you see in something that could essentially airproof or de-risk a project when it, you know, reviews a first, you know, a set of drawings before they get to you as a superintendent?
Yeah, I mean, just drawings as a whole, there's never a set of drawings that is perfect, right? There's always mistakes, and that's what ends up costing a project time, money, and headaches. It happens on every single project, and a lot of the times the architects and design team, they just kind of relieve themselves of all liability of everything. It's just a pain in the butt for contractors. We see it again on every single project. There's like, because there's a little fine print over here, now we have to foot the bill as the contractor, and we see that all the time. And then on top of that, there's design issues, right? The ADA clearances aren't being met because of this wall is a 2x6 instead of a 2x4, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of design issues as well, and hopefully AI can help mitigate that. And I think that is a very helpful tool to at least say, hey, maybe you should look over here. Maybe it's not telling you exactly what to do or what the fix is, but say, hey, this might be an issue, right?
Yeah.
So it would be helpful to have that, because there's always problems on every single plan set.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think our best hope here, and echoing, I think the sentiment of this is like, nothing will beat your ability to review drawings. The buck starts at the bid and ends at the handover for the GC. And the drawing is literally the contractual instrument the entire way through that process.
Yeah.
And if you are looking at this set of hatchwork and lines and letters and numbers, and you don't know and don't understand, then no amount of AI is going to help you. But if you get those foundational skills like what you teach, right? And you're now alerted to, hey, this doesn't look something, you should look over here, double check this, double check that. Now you're like superhuman. You know what I mean? Like you have this amazing like exoskeleton of ability that's just alerting you to the things that you need to deal with quicker, while boosting the skills that you have to have that foundation for. So yeah, I definitely think that that's the way.
Yep, I agree.
Bobby, Brian, I'm so thankful to have had this time getting to know you. Bobby is bloody awesome. Please, everybody just go and check out Blueprints with Bob on Instagram and TikTok. Is that it? Blueprints_Bob.
Yeah.
How do you say it? Tell us the handle.
If you just search Blueprints with Bob, it should pop up. Yeah. Instagram. But there's underscores between each of the words.
Okay, perfect. Bobby, again, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, man.
Of course, thank you both. This was incredible. I loved being here. This was my first podcast, and it was a whole lot of fun.
Can we invite you back?
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I'll reach out and bug you, Bobby. Thank you.
Please do. All righty, guys. Well, have a good one.